All right, welcome to the masterclass. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you so much for joining me. So, whether you are joining me live or you're watching the replay, welcome, welcome, and a welcome again. So, for those of you who have never interacted with me before, my name is Aldreama Harper. I am a podcast launch strategist. I'm also an organizing and business consultant and host of the Organizepreneur podcast, where I share strategies on all three topics. Um, I teach you how to launch a podcast, okay, how to streamline your podcast, how to organize your space for your podcast, um, as well as systems for your podcast, right, and your business. Um, and all of those things are actually done on the podcast and this masterclass. Okay. So, and the reason that I do that is because of the fact that I've had more than 20 years, actually, probably like 20, 25 years as a professional organizer. And I've launched 3 podcasts. I share this all the time. I've launched 3 podcasts. The first one was back in 2013. The second one I launched with my former business partner, and now I'm on the Organized Preneur podcast, which is my solo project, right? So that is my short introduction. Okay. But the thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a podcast that combines all of those skill sets where they kind of come to one I come to one place in that arena and share that, because I feel like the skills that that I share, or the things that I share, will help you with your skill set, right? Especially in your business. Okay. So your business and your podcast, as well as your life. And so the skills that you're going to acquire by listening either to the masterclass or the podcast are going to be transferable. They're transferable to various aspects of your business, and really, actually, they go beyond podcasting. So, what are you going to get today? What can you expect today um, in this masterclass? Well, I'm glad you asked. So, you're going to get actionable insights and practical tools. Okay. Things that you can apply immediately to launch and grow your podcast. Okay. To grow a successful podcast. Success depends on what you deem successful. Okay. I can't determine that for you, but what I can tell you is that you will launch and grow a successful podcast. And so these master classes that I am doing on a weekly basis, I cover various topics, right? And so again, that, various topics, it's not going to be the same topic every week. But every week is at the same time, but the topics are going to be different, as well as me answering questions that's been submitted via the registration of the masterclass. Okay. So what can you expect? Again, you can expect actionable insights and practical tools that you can apply beyond podcasting. The steps that we'll be talking about, the things that we talk about, the strategies that we talk about are actually foundational. They're foundational building blocks, and they prepare you for a more successful podcast launch. So the thing that I always ask when I'm introducing the masterclass or the podcast or what have you is that you take notes, but more importantly, you take action. Okay. Take action. Information is everywhere. In fact, you can find the information that I'm sharing with you and will be sharing with you in just a moment. You can find this information online, right? But the thing is, are you applying it? That is the thing that separates us. Are you applying the action steps, the information that you learn, that you find out there internet world. Are you applying those things? And so that is why I'm here with you today to help you to get closer and closer to your goals related to business, related to podcasting, and things like that. Right. So, and here's the deal, podcasting is really not just about creating content. Right. Because I know a lot of people, it's like, I'm creating content, blah, blah, blah. It's not just about creating content. It really is about strategically positioning yourself in a competitive market. What do I mean that by that? I really want to give you some stats here. Let me look at my stats that I just pulled up. So um, here are some stats that I found very interesting, not to discourage you, but just to let you know what's going on in the podcasting world. So, um, and a lot of this is encouraging, right? So I don't want to preface it that way so that you think this is something that, to discourage you. So here we go. So here's some stats. 50% of the US population listen to podcasts, and it fosters deeper connections with your audience. Okay. So, my question to you, are you one of those listeners? Because if you want to be a podcaster and you want to launch a podcast, you should probably consider being a listener. I have talked to people who say, well, I don't really listen to podcasts. Well, don't you want people to listen to yours? Right. So, but 50% of the US population listen to a podcast. Another stat, 80% of, and this is one that you want to pay attention to, 80% of podcast listeners listen to all or most of each episode. Additionally, podcast listeners are highly engaged with your podcast. Like if they click on that button and it's something that they really, information that they really want to know about, and it is an engaging podcast, they are going to stay there. They're going to listen. They're going to anticipate your next episode. That's why it's important to have consistency in your podcast. 54% are more likely to consider buying your products. That is important. Now, here's the other thing that I wanted to share as far as statistics. I just looked this up this morning. So as of 2024, there are over 4 million podcasts. 4 million podcasts. In the past 3 days, there were 98,245 podcasts launched. In the past 10 days, 211,000, over 211,000 podcasts launched. Over the past 30 days, there were over 308,000 podcasts launched. That's according to podcastindex.org. So here's why I shared those stats with you. I shared those stats because standing out in the podcasting space, in the business space, right? It requires a concerted effort in building a loyal audience, effectively marketing your show, and implementing various monetizing strategies. It's going to require all of that. Now, this may seem daunting, right? It may seem daunting, but I promise you this, with the right approach, with the right attitude, with the right strategies, it can be incredibly rewarding. And I can tell you that based on my own personal experience and others that have podcasts. Okay. It can be incredibly rewarding. So let's get into our topic. So, our topic for today is we're talking about essential equipment for your podcast haven. I call it your podcast home office haven. Um, and so I want to get into that. And I'm also going to answer a question that was submitted as well. So let's just get into it. So, because I get this question all the time, what equipment do I need? And even when I'm, with my clients and people that I am coaching and um, talking to on a one-on-one basis, I make sure that I emphasize the fact that that's not the first place that you start, right? This, what I'm going to share with you, is not the first place that you start. It is important as you commit to, creating content and all of that. And I'll share that in just a minute. But this is a question, like I said, that I get all the time. What do I need to get started? Okay. Now, what kind of, in other words, what kind of equipment, do I need, to get started? And so that's what we're going to be tackling. Um, and this is for aspiring and seasoned podcasters. This is the must-have equipment for your podcasting haven. Okay. And when you start, you don't have to get all of this, not just starting, but it is essential because you can start with earbuds, sorry, not headbuds, earbuds. You can start with earbuds and a phone. But if you're serious, and I want to make sure that this distinction is clear, if you are serious about podcasting, then these are the essentials that you will need. Okay. Because having the right tools can make a world of difference, right? It can make a world of difference in the quality of your content and the efficiency of your workflow. All right. So let's go ahead and explore the essential equipment that will transform your podcasting space into a podcast powerhouse. Okay, here's the equipment. So let's start with number one, which is kind of obvious. Number one, if you're serious about your podcast, you need a good microphone. Okay, you need a good microphone. That is the heart of any podcast setup. Okay, a good microphone is crucial for capturing clear, professional sounding audio. So for beginners, I recommend starting with a USB microphone, like a Blue Yeti, which is what I have. Okay. I purchased my Blue Yeti back, I believe it was about 2 years ago, and it is still amazing. It still works perfectly, even though I've been doing podcasting for quite some time. But I would start with this Blue Yeti with the USB plug-in because it is just going to plug right into your laptop. Okay. It has, plug and play options, and this offers great sound quality without breaking the bank. Okay. So, like this microphone that I'm using now cost me about $59. This was 2 years ago. And I purchased this on Amazon. Now, I will say that it's gone up about $30, right? So they're now about $89 last time I checked. But please don't let that discourage you, because you can find microphones that cost less than this. This is just kind of like something that I know is going to last. I can't recommend the other microphones because I've never used the other microphone. I can recommend the microphone that I use. So this is what I would start with. Okay. Headphones. So number one is a microphone. You need a good microphone. Number two are headphones, because you want to monitor your audio. You want to hear yourself while you're recording, during the editing process, if you decide you want to edit your own podcast. You definitely will need headphones. Now, I use earbuds, okay, because I don't like headphones, and I don't like the headphones. I don't like my ears totally enclosed. Okay. Now it's okay for me if I'm just editing, but when I'm recording, I actually like earbuds because I can hear myself and I can monitor my audio. I can see how loud, you know, I can hear, not see how loud, I can hear how loud my audio is. And I can look on, like, I can look on the screen right now and I can see, the little icon, audio icon that's moving. So I know that I have sound that's coming out. Okay. So, but you definitely need some type of headphones or earbuds for the recording and the editing process, right? You can find that, of course, on Amazon, or you can go, to your local store or what have you. But you want to find, if you decide to use headphones, or um, you want to look for closed back headphones to minimize sound leakage, right? And so again, that was not my first choice because I don't like my ears totally covered, but I do have some. And so that's how I discovered that. I was like, no, I don't want to cover up my ears totally. I don't know. It may be something that's psychological that's going on in my head. I don't know. But what I do know is this, that I don't like them totally covered. Maybe I feel like maybe it's FOMO, fear of missing out on something. I don't know. But that's my personal my personal choice, right? Are earbuds. And like even right now you can see that I have earbuds. If you're watching, the video, or watching me on the screen, I have earbuds. They're not headphones you know that's sitting out like that. So anyway, I digress on that. So, but my point is, you do need something, to monitor your audio while you're recording and editing. Number three, a microphone stand or a boom arm. So I personally like a boom arm. Okay, you can see it here. You can see my microphone is clipped to a boom arm. Um, I personally like the boom arm because it frees up my desk space. I can just take it, fold it, put it back out of the way when I'm working. Because I work in a small space. And so I don't like a whole lot of stuff on my desktop. Okay, so I like the boom arm. You may like the microphone stand. So this microphone that I'm talking about did come with a stand that attaches to the microphone. Okay, you can set it on your desk, and things like that. So it's a matter of personal choice once again, but you do need something. Now you can do like the clip on, that's another option. And that's something that I'm seeing, now, where people are definitely using, little clip-on microphones, and that's for freedom. You may be, depending on where you are recording your podcast, that may be a better option for you. So you do have to find what works for you. Okay. All right. Next, you're going to need, so that was number three. Yeah, number three. So next, you are going to need some type of pop filter or windscreen, like what you see here. This is a windscreen, and well, it's a combination. Okay. So there's also the windscreen you'll see, and I didn't think to bring it because I did get one. I actually had gotten a bundle when I first was setting up my podcasting, setup. I had gotten the pop filter, where you see a lot of people, they have this round filter, in front of their microphone. That is for the words that you use that start with a P or a B or something like that. You want to invest in some type of windscreen. Okay. And so that's what this is for. This is less intrusive and all that wonderful stuff. So, but there are a lot of accessories out there. So as a matter of fact, while I was researching prices and things like that. Um, you can get like the boom arm that comes with the pop filter. You can get like bundles, right? And as a matter of fact, when I got mine, it was a bundle. It included, the the pop filter or windscreen. I actually got these additional. They're very inexpensive, but it's again, it's a matter of a personal choice. But these are very, very affordable accessories that can significantly improve your audio quality. I wanted to get something because number one, I am next to a window, which brings me to the next point. So you want to have some type of acoustic treatment. Okay. This is crucial for achieving professional sound. So you can start with panels, um, or foam to reduce the echo and things like that, and unwanted reflection. So sound bounces off of the walls, and so you have to consider all of those things when you are setting up your podcasting space. So you can also use things like, heavy curtains, rugs, a bookshelf full of books. All of that is designed um, to absorb your sound. Okay. And so I did a previous episode that where I talked about some budget friendly solutions. And that was one of the things that I talked about. But they're budget friendly solutions for that you can actually, you don't even have to go out and purchase anything. Most of us have blankets, right? And most of us will have curtains or things like that. You can get a rug. A lot of us, if we're in our home office, we may have bookshelves already, but these are the things that will help to absorb the sound. Okay. All right. Next is, let me look at my list here. um you do want a reliable computer. Okay. Now I know some people, will, and I have even said this, that you can launch your podcast and start your podcast even without a computer. There are apps out there, and we'll talk about that probably. As a matter of fact, I think I've talked about that in other episodes. Um, but you can just use your phone, right? To launch your podcast. When you're a beginner, I encourage you just to start somewhere and start with what you have and not going out there, to just purchase all of this stuff. I know people that's gone out there, purchase all this stuff and never start their podcast. They're excited about, launching a podcast, but they just never do anything, right? I don't want that to be you. So I want you to start with what you have. And then when you're ready to do some upgrades, you can consider some of the things that I'm sharing with you now, right? So, but if you have a computer, and most of us do, right? You can produce your podcast. You can start your podcast. Whether it's a desktop or a laptop or what have you, right? You can launch your podcast, because you're going to need something if you decide to edit your own podcast. You're going to need something that's reliable, that's capable of handling all of those different kinds of files, especially if you're doing video, if you decide to do video, right? Um, because you want to make sure it has enough of the processing power and storage. Boy, when I tell you, those video files can really take up a lot of space on on your computer. So you definitely want something, that's going to be able to handle all of that, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of it yourself. Okay. Lastly, lighting. If you're planning on incorporating video elements into your podcast, you want good lighting. That is essential. I have this little, it's not a little, it's actually a floor lamp that has different settings. It actually comes with a remote. It's something that I found on Amazon. It helps me with the different settings. What is so helpful with this one is that it has different settings. Like if I'm just reading or if I'm writing, I can, click on the different settings that will change the lighting. Like if you're looking on on video here, you can see where the lighting is changing a little bit, right? So you want something like that, or you can get like a ring light. A lot of people use ring lights. That there are things that you can put a ring light on a stand, and it does a great job of providing lighting. So these are very, very budget friendly things you can do to improve the quality of your content, right? And so, but you don't have to, don't break the bank, right? They're things that you can do before you get to this point, right? So, and so I wanted to share those things with you because I get the questions all the time. This is definitely uh, uh, a good starting point. Start with the basics: the microphone, the headphone, the computer, the software. Like if you're going to be doing editing your own software, you can use Audacity. It's free. There's also other software, right? And I've covered that in other episodes. There are, when I tell you, it's almost like every other day there's a new platform or a new audio interface that comes out that helps you with all of this. Now, with my clients, I recommend Riverside. So I'm going to cover this now because it always comes up, and since I started talking about it, I'll share this now. But it's definitely something that you probably hear me talk about all the time. So when I work with my clients, I use Spotify for podcasters because Spotify, which used to be Anchor, also has partnered with Riverside, and you can do everything in one platform. Okay, there's that. All right. Now, there was one more question that I had gotten. Someone submitted a question. Actually, it was a request. They said that they needed a tutorial. Now, I don't necessarily do tutorials when I'm doing the master class. But what I can do, if you're listening, because she's not on the call right now, but if you are listening, I can give you the 5 steps to launching your podcast. And so, and this is essential because these are the steps you need to go in the sequence that I'm telling you about right now. Okay. Number 1, you absolutely must clarify your podcast niche. Okay. You have got to do that. You've got to clarify, define your niche. Who is it that you're going to be talking to? Okay. That's like business. You gotta know those things, right? So clarify your podcast niche. Number 2, craft compelling content. Once you clarify and define your podcast niche, then you can craft compelling content that speaks to that audience. Okay. This is a must, right? And so you can do that by, well, there's a lot of ways you can do it, right? One of the ways that I share with people all the time, including my clients, is that you look on social media. Well, here's one of the things that I do, in addition to doing the master classes and asking questions. But that's the point right there. You want to ask questions. If you are in a group, a social media a group on Facebook or any of the platforms, you want to ask questions to people that you are looking to create content for. Okay. And so that is the absolute best way. One little hack I share all the time is that when I see an ad, if I'm on Facebook and I see an ad that speaks to me, that at my audience, I will always go and look at the comments and look at the questions that the people have, because there's always going to be questions in that ad, right? So what are the questions that they're asking? And so when you create compelling content, you create content based on what your audience wants. Please, please, please hear me when I tell you, do not start creating content for yourself. Okay? All right. So that's number three, craft compelling content. That's number two, actually. Number three, create a loyal audience. So when you clarify your niche, you clarify and define your niche, you craft compelling content, you will create a loyal audience because you're speaking to the people that want to hear from you, right? Um, then number four, create your podcast haven. And so this episode right here is going to help you to do that, right? I just shared with you some budget friendly solutions to creating your podcast haven, your recording studio, you know, that you can if you're serious. I have to always qualify that with you have to be serious. Don't go out there and start with number four unless you've already gone through the first three steps and you've determined that you are serious, right? And then number five, commence with your podcast, right? Then you start recording. Then you start, telling people about your podcast and getting listeners and things like that, right? So let me, here are the five steps. Number one, clarify your podcast niche. Number two, craft compelling content. Number three, create a loyal audience. Number four, create your podcast studio or haven, and then commence with your podcast. Okay. So this masterclass, we've covered everything to get started, right? We've covered all the essential equipment that's needed for your podcasting space. I've even answered questions that will help you to make an informed decision to build and start your podcast. So whether you use my recommended platform or whatever, just consider all of these things that the steps that I have shared with you, right? Make sure that you go through that sequence, right? Because this is what's going to help ensure that your podcast is not only high quality, but also accessible and engaging for your listeners. Okay. So I hope this has been extremely helpful for you. Now, if you are interested in closing the gap from where you are now and where you want to go and how to fill that gap, then book a success strategy call with me. Okay. And on the call, it's a 15-minute call. On the call, I'll share options as available. And if at that time it makes sense for us to work together, we'll discuss how to move forward. Okay. It's not a sales call, it's just a success strategy call. Okay. And so you can do that by going to bit.ly, bit.ly/pod launch strategy. Okay. bit.ly/pod launch strategy. Okay. So that is where you can set up your success strategy call. Many of you have already done that and definitely are on your way to a successful podcast. All right. Now, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, organizepreneurpodcast.com. You can go there. And lastly, I always like to end with a scripture. So today's scripture is Romans 14:8. And this is the NIV version. The scripture says, if we live for the Lord. And if we die for the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. So thank you for joining me. I hope this has been inspirational to you. I hope these tips have helped you. I hope these tips help you to transform your podcast haven into a well organized, efficient environment. And I hope that you launch your podcast. And I wish you much, much success in your podcasting endeavors. So until next time, stay organized and happy podcasting. Have a great day. Bye bye.